Hello, welcome to this short and hopefully useful presentation on the common pitfalls of preparing for the CFA exam. My name is Simon Holohan. I'm the head of CFA exam training here at Fitch Learning, and myself, along with my colleagues, which we have across the world, we basically got together and did a bit of a brainstorming, and we collectively came up with these 10 sort of top pitfalls, top tips, call it what you like. So you really got the collective experience of well, hundreds of years worth of CFA training across our faculty. There's quite a high degree of overlap, as you can imagine, but the point is, if you are aware of these pitfalls, then hopefully you won't fall into them. Okay, so we're getting towards the end of January. You know, many of you will be just starting your CFA study, ready for the June exam. It's really important you maximize your time and you don't make these mistakes. So let's have a quick look at these 10 pitfalls. And again, I won't read them out for you, but you can see them here, and you can tell already there's a bit of overlap we have there. What I would say at the outset, though, is, and I've been training people for the CFA Level 1 exam for near 20 years now, and it's incredibly rare that I find someone who has failed the exam because they're simply not smart enough. It generally doesn't happen. The people who take CFA tend to be pretty smart people. What causes them to not pass, in short, is a lack of planning, a lack of discipline, and a lack of focus. You know, that tends to be it, okay? Not really to do with intelligence. In fact, if I'm honest, the CFA Level 1 curriculum, well, you've probably seen it already, is not particularly tricky. It's not technical. You know, you don't have to know in any great detail about anything. It's all about breadth rather than depth. So you have to know a little bit about an awful lot of topics. Right? So it's all about just being organised, being focused, and being structured, having some sort of discipline. So if I go through some of these, and hopefully just by talking about them and being aware of them, you can do something about it. Okay. So let's start with the first one, about the number of hours. Right? This is probably the most common question I get asked. They say, Simon, how many hours do you have to study? And most of you have been on the CFA website, you've seen it, they recommend 300 hours, and you think, haha, they don't really mean that. Well, actually, they do. Do you need 300 hours? Well, obviously, I don't know what your background is. If you have a finance degree, or maybe econometrics, or maybe you're a qualified accountant, then you won't need 300 hours. But if you're a history major, you absolutely will. In fact, you'll probably need north of 300 hours. So it's really hard to actually answer this. All I can say is, from my own personal experience, having been through the whole of the CFA program, before I studied CFA, I came from an economics background. And so for Level 1, obviously the economics aspects and the quants aspects I was absolutely fine with. I was also pretty handy at fixed income. So those elements of the curriculum I was okay with. Elements I wasn't. And I reckon I certainly didn't do 3. I did under 200 hours for Level 1. For Level 2, I did absolutely well over 300 hours, probably 350, 360, 370, it's hard to tell, but a lot for Level 2, big step up in difficulty. And for Level 3, I probably did about 250-ish hours. So I reckon, if you take an average, for me personally, it wasn't far off 300 hours. So all I would say, though, is at this stage, you should go into it trying to plan for 300 hours. Yeah, it's always best to err on the side of caution. So really, it's all about making that plan, having an idea about how you're going to get those hours in. Okay, so you can do the math. You can think, okay, well, where are we now? Where's the exam? How many weeks is that? And then obviously you can divide your 300 into by those weeks, and that will give you a number of hours per week. Okay. Hopefully, if you get this done now, up front, and start now, it won't turn out to be too many hours a week. And obviously, there's a limit to how much we can do on top of what is probably already a very busy week. right? So most people who start around about January-ish time end up doing between sort of 10 and 15 hours a week. Right? So just try and think about those number of hours. Try and think about when you're going to learn. Have a think about, are you a morning person, an evening person? Can you work at weekends? Talk to your house partners, housemates, maybe your spouse. Just talk to people who will be affected by you doing the study. Okay. So just think about that, and once you've done that, don't waste the time. This will soon go. These weeks will fly by. So really don't waste time. Try and maximise every spare minute. Now, if you use our Fitch Learning online platform called Cognition, then you can maximise your time, because even if you've only got 5 minutes to spare, you can do something productive. So we break down the learning into micro modules, often called atoms. And so therefore, you can literally, in fact, you can probably watch 2 or 3 videos in 5 minutes. Or you can watch one video and then do a few questions to reinforce it. So basically, whatever way you do it, try and think about those 300 hours, have them back in your mind, and don't waste the time. That's very well connected to having a study plan. So it's great to have an idea. You do the math, 300 divided by number of weeks, blah blah. But then you need to monitor that. You want to make sure that you are staying on track, right? It's all about, remember, being organised and being disciplined, right? So have a plan. Set yourself some targets. Once you've worked out the number of weeks, then go to the curriculum and work out the readings. There are about 60 readings at level 1. Again, you can do the math. You can say, okay, 60 readings. We have 25 weeks. You can start to work out how many readings you need to do per week. So it's really important you set yourself a plan. Now again, if you use the Fitch Learning platform, we do have an intelligent study plan where you can set the start date, and it will use all the hundreds of years effectively of experience we have in knowing how long it should take you to do a typical topic, that the study plan will give you realistic targets. And if for some reason you miss it, maybe you're ill or work related, then the plan will adapt. They'll say, okay, well, you still got to hit that target, but now you can't do it over 3 weeks, you can have to do it over 2 weeks. So it will adapt. Right? So have a plan and monitor your progress. Okay. What about the whole syllabus? And what if you haven't learned the syllabus? Now, if I'm honest, you don't have to learn the whole syllabus for level 1. For levels 2 and 3, different matter. But for level 1, you don't really, because if you think about it, there are a lot of questions in your exam. You have 120 questions in the morning, 120 in the afternoon. That 240 questions means the examiner can pretty much afford to use a question on most areas of the curriculum. There's not too many aspects of the curriculum that are left out. What that means then, if you were to be really confident with, say, 75–80% of the curriculum, given that the sample size is pretty large, 240 questions, you should be quite confident that you'll be able to pass the exam. It's very different as you go through the levels because the number of questions reduce down. So therefore, you basically got the risks of a small sample, and as we know, that creates obviously sampling error, which you've seen in quants. But the point here, you've got lots of questions for level 1. So okay, you don't have to know the whole curriculum, but you want to be targeting, let's say, about 80%. What you don't want to do is question spot. No one, if anyone says this will come up, take it from me, they're lying. No one will know what's going to come up. And if they did know, they certainly shouldn't be saying anything about it. Right? So try and cover as much, a decent amount of the curriculum. Let's say 80% to be safe. Okay. That said, it's very easy to not do that. It's very easy to over-focus on your strong areas. Let's face it, it's quite nice when you're studying to read something and you think, oh, that makes sense. Do questions and get it right. It's not very nice when you're doing topics where you get questions wrong and you're thinking, I just don't understand what's going on. So naturally, as humans, we tend to err on the bits we like and are good at, and we tend to avoid the other bits. And That's fine if the bits you don't like are very, very small part of the curriculum. But what if it's more like 50% you like and you're good, 50% you don't like? That's the risk you fall into, that you'll naturally gravitate to the other bits. So again, yeah, you probably need some discipline here. If you haven't got that discipline yourself, our online platform can do that for you. It has a very, very clever algorithm that basically creates a profile of you. Everything you do, it monitors it. It works out what questions you get right and wrong, how long you took to do them. So it builds a profile, and it soon works out which topics you are pretty strong at and which topics you're not. And it will just give you more questions of the latter than the former. So it will hopefully help you not fall into that gap, but that trap. But otherwise, just be aware of it. Try and keep that breadth, keep that pace up, keep to the plan, and try and cover, I'd say, at least 80%. Ethics, again, as you probably know, if you don't, you now do. Ethics is crucial for two reasons. One, it's a really big topic weight. I mean, 15% is not to be sneezed at. But secondly, if you turn out to be a borderline candidate, whatever that means, we don't really know what the standard deviation is of the exams and where they create a borderline. But if you are deemed borderline by the examiners, then they will take your ethics score, just your ethics score, as the deciding factor. So if you do well in ethics, if you get, say, over 70% and you're borderline, you will pass. If you don't do well in ethics and you're borderline, you won't pass. So ethics is really important. So please make sure you follow that. In my opinion, by far the best preparation for ethics is to use the actual curriculum. Ethics is let's face it, it's not black and white. If it was, we wouldn't have compliance departments. Ethics involves interpretation. It's shades of grey. And you really need to go to the source material. To use that phrase, get it from the horse's mouth. Otherwise, trust me, you will miss out some of the nuances. You'll miss out some of the subtleties. Right? And you simply won't understand the standards of practice. Right? So please use a CFA book for ethics. Right? How you study is really up to you. What worked for me was I did little and often. So I'm a commuter. You can probably tell from the grey hair or lack of hair and the lines and the stressed look. But I'm a commuter, and I spend half my life, it seems, on trains and planes and various things. So I just used that time for reading ethics. So in the morning on my commute, didn't use the whole of that commute, but I used to use about 15-20 minutes in the morning. I read one of the standards. And then in the afternoon, another 15 or 20 minutes, another standard. I did that every day. And so after a couple of weeks, I read all the standards, at which point I went around again and again and again. So by the time I hit the exam, I had read the standards many, many times. So that worked for me, but I know colleagues of mine swear by cramming. So a couple of colleagues here at Fitch Learning, they simply left ethics towards the end, and then about 2 weeks before the exam, they sat down and read the standards of practice, cover to cover, and then just did about 100 and 200 odd questions to reinforce it. So obviously it doesn't really matter which way you go, whichever works for you, but please don't forget ethics. Right? Very, very, very important. Okay. Exam practice. It's important you get the feel of the exam in terms of the type of questions, the timings, and you get a feel as to how long it should take you to do the exam. So question practice is going to be essential. All right. It will obviously help you also to recall information. I don't know if you know this, but most educational studies show that students, not just CFA, but generally students, what we do is we underestimate our ability to learn, and we overestimate our ability to recall. And so what happens in those, we spend far too long reading, writing, highlighting, and not long enough practicing questions. And actually our brains are a lot better than we think in terms of learning, but we actually do need to train our brains to recall, and question practice will absolutely help you recall it. Right? It's not just question practice. I mean, there's lots of other techniques you may want to use. So on our cognition platform, we also have mind maps, which personally I've always been a visual, big picture type of learner. So to me, mind maps are essential. To see the overall look of a topic before I drill down. All right, but the question bank and the questions are very important. Right? So we have thousands of questions on the question bank, which will help you kind of recall and recall and recall and keep recalling until it becomes second nature. Obviously mock exams as well. I mean, you'd expect that from any provider. Again, it's vital that you look at mock exams. It's vital you do them in the time available. It's no point doing 20 questions in a mock, stopping, going and have a cup of coffee, and then coming back. Because that's not what it's going to be like on the day. On the day, you're going to be in probably a fairly stuffy, noisy, not particularly nice environment, certainly if you're in London anyway, and it's going to be 3 hours of not particularly good time of your life. And you're going to have to concentrate and work for those 3 hours. You're going to have a very short break, and then you have another 3 hours. So it's really important that you prepare yourself physically. It is actually physically tiring doing a 6-hour exam, and obviously mentally tiring. So please try and do these mocks. Obviously, we're not talking right now in January, but as you get towards May and June, and you start looking at mocks. So we have 5 full mocks here at Fitch Learning. But when you start doing a mock, just do it as a 3-hour. Just at least do one paper as a 3-hour exercise. Okay. For those of you who sign up with Fitch Learning, we also have a fully proctored mock, where again you can get the whole experience of proctors and and the whole kind of what's it going to feel like on the day kind of stuff. Right. But question practice, recall, very, very important part. Okay, so try and build in. What I used to do, actually, I used to do my own kind of version. I used to call them brain dumps, and I'd literally get a blank piece of paper. I'd write in the middle of it a key word, so maybe inventory valuation, and I'd download everything I could recall. I'd download LIFO, FIFO. From there, I'd download implications. So profit lower for LIFO, balance sheet, inventory lower. I'd download ratios, this ratio higher. So I'll just download, and then I'd take my piece of paper and compare it to my study notes. So whatever technique you want to use, but just try and remember, we underestimate our ability to learn, and we overestimate our ability to recall. Okay. Pace. This is pretty important because it stops you running. It stops you running out of energy, time. It's a bit like, I guess, sports. I mean, if you are training for a particular event, you want to peak just before that event happens. So if you are, training for a marathon, imagine you have a marathon in 4 months' time. On day 1 of your training, you don't run a marathon. You build up, and each week goes by, you add an extra couple of Ks to your run. And as you get towards the deadline of the marathon, that's when you're starting to do sort of your 20 miles, etc. Exactly the same for the CFA. You need to peak at the time of the exam. You don't want to peak too early. If you try and do too many hours too early, trust me, you'll hate CFA, you'll resent studying, you'll get really tired, and you'll get burnt out. So try and pace yourself. If you're studying now in January, you want to perhaps think about maybe having the odd weekend off. Maybe sort of around Easter time. Take a short break. I'm not talking 3 weeks in the Maldives. Take a short break, and it just helps you stay fresh. But generally speaking, it's better to start a little bit slower and build up. Just like if you're training for that marathon. So try and increase the momentum, increase the pace as you get nearer to the exam. But with a proviso that you shouldn't really do too much as you get very near to the exam. There's no point putting in all-nighters in the day before the exam. That's just crazy. You'll be so tired you won't be able to perform. So try and work on the pace. If you can, I know work commitments can be a problem, but if you can, I would strongly recommend taking a week off work in the week before the exam. Personally, I don't think I would have passed any of my levels without taking that week off. Because in that week you can do mock paper after mock paper after mock paper, and you can really start to build some momentum in that final week. But I appreciate that's not always possible. But if you can't do that, at least try and keep that pace increasing. You know, try and be mindful of it, and also be mindful of your own limitations. You know, don't overload yourself, particularly in that last week, because you'll be tired and exhausted for the exam. So pace your study, very important. Practical aspects, the calculator. You know, hopefully you've got your calculator. The Texas Instruments BA2 Plus is probably the best one, certainly the most popular one that people use. It's really important you use this calculator all the time. I know it's not necessarily the best calculator, it has a very limited display, but that said, what it can do in terms of the embedded functions and the worksheets is really powerful. It's like having your own Excel in your pocket. So I would recommend you try and use it, you know, even at work if you can. I know everyone uses Excel at work, but just try a little bit on the calculator. The more you can use it, the better. Because come the exam, this has to be second nature. You don't have to be thinking, what button do I press? It has to be fast, all right? Second nature. There are some really important functions you absolutely have to be all over. So the NPV and IRR functions, which are part of the cash flow function, second row from the top, you know, you have to be able to do those. The third row functions, you know, where you're working out the present value of an annuity, or working out an annuity, or working out the future value, working out the yield, whatever. You must be all over that third row. There's probably my favourite function is the I-convert function. That's where you can switch between a simple interest rate, often called a stated rate, and a compound annual rate. Yeah, so you can switch it, and again, you should know where that is, you know, where the function. There's a really good data and stat function where you can work out things like standard deviation of a data set. Yeah, so I won't go through this again, but if you want some help, there is a free calculator guide here on our website. But really make sure you spend your time with a calculator. Every calculation, just use it. Yeah, and all the other functions I haven't spoken about, memory functions, you know, sticking things in memory, recalling memory. Just use the calculator as often as you can until it becomes second nature, right? Because you won't have a lot of time in the exam. You really won't have time thinking, what do I want to press here? All right, so, you know, the time should be fine, if I'm honest. Most people don't run out of time in the exam, but that's assuming you're not hanging around thinking about what button to press, right? So try and use this as much as you can, okay? Lack of support from your peer group, very important, particularly those of you who perhaps work in a pressured environment. Maybe you work for an investment bank, and I know from my own experience it can be quite difficult to leave your desk at what is perceived to be an early time because you want to go and do some studying. So I'd really recommend that you have a chat with the people you work with, talk to your line manager. Yeah, and you know, just let them know. Just say, okay, well, twice a week, I'm going to try and leave work a little bit early because I want to perhaps maybe attend an evening class or watch a live streamed evening class, or just go and do some studying. Otherwise, I know if you try and leave your desk at say 6, half 6, people start making jokes about, oh, it's a bit early, or you've gone part-time, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, discuss it. Let people know that you're not being lazy. The fact you're leaving your desk at 6 is because you're going to go and do another 2 or 3 hours of study. So I think it's really important to get kind of awareness and buy-in from your peer group. Right? But also it can create a support network. The more you talk to people around you at work, the more people say, oh yeah, I did CFA. You say, really? I didn't know that. And they can help you. Or someone may say, yeah, I'm studying as well. That's even better. Then you can really bounce off ideas with each other. So, you know, so create your own kind of study group to help each other. For those who can't do that, obviously we can help you here. So me and my team of CFA instructors, again, if you come through Fitch Learning, we have a global faculty all over the world of highly experienced CFA instructors, and we can be your support network. You can just email us questions and we can reply. But very important, you talk to your friends, your colleagues, your line manager, and make sure they understand. Make sure they understand what you are doing. Make sure they realise that you are studying at weekends. And again, it may not, but it may help you when your line manager is thinking about allocating some work that has to be done for Monday and it is given out on a Friday. They may perhaps not give you so much to do if they know you're studying at the weekend. Maybe. Cramming. Well, I mentioned ethics possibly for cramming, and people do that because ethics is very descriptive. There's not much to work out in ethics. So short-term memory may work, but generally speaking, I don't believe you can cram the entire curriculum. If you Google this, you'll find some people showing off saying, "Oh, I passed CFA in 2 weeks of studying or 2 days of studying." I find it very hard to believe that, unless these people are uber clever and have an unbelievable photographic memory. I just don't think you can cram. So it really goes back to the first point. You've got to recognise that it's going to take you 200 to 300 hours. And you've got to plan for that and create a plan. You've got to monitor that plan. I would not just try and say, "Oh, I'll forget about it and then have a really busy May." It's not going to work. All right? So please try and avoid that. Learning answers to questions won't work. Every question you see, whether it's from Fitch Learning or from any other provider, will not be exam questions. The exam is a sealed, secret experience. The CFA Institute do not publish exam questions for level 1 and level 2. Right? They've never published those. So trying to memorize answers isn't going to work. You have to obviously understand the question, understand the answers. Okay. Memorizing, well, some people can get by a bit from memorizing, but say generally speaking, it really helps to understand. You could probably, if I'm honest, get by level 1 by memorizing, rote learning without fully understanding, but I'm afraid when you get to levels 2 and 3, that won't work and you'll be caught out. So I would definitely try and understand as much as you can. Okay, as much as you can. Just looking at some of the questions that have been posted, so just have a quick read here. Questions, very good question actually, just come in saying, is the CFA exam considered hard due to the reason that most candidates underestimate and under-prepare, or is the actual exam needing exceptional brilliance? Well, obviously having got the exam myself, I like to think it does need exceptional brilliance, but that's probably not the true answer. It really absolutely is the first part of your question. I think most candidates underestimate it, and they totally under-prepare for it. I think particularly if you've come through, again, I don't want to be too dismissive, but more recent education experience, certainly I've seen it with my own children, that the experience they're having is quite different to one I had. In my day, if you didn't revise, you failed a test, you failed an exam. My kids don't seem to work that hard, but they never seem to fail anything. It's almost like the word fail has been taken out of a lot of education. At CFA, you absolutely can fail. So I think people just think it's a turn up, have a go, you'll pass. It really isn't. So yeah, definitely, it's not to do with being exceptionally brilliant. It's really down to the lack of structure we have here. Okay. What have we got here? Formulas, how to internalize, memorize them. Lots of formulas, absolutely lots of formulas. You can use cheat sheets, formula sheets, which ourselves and many other providers may offer. To be honest, the best thing you can do is do your own. The act of you writing out formally and doing that will help you. So yes, I mean, as Fitch Learning, we can tell you the formulae. We've got various products that will highlight the key formulae for you, but you still have to learn them and understand them. Okay. So I'll have another look at some of the questions in a moment once we go through. But let's go back to the top pitfalls for the time being. So we've done the cramming. Hopefully we're okay there. Pressure of the day. Briefly touched on this beforehand, but pressure of the day can be an issue. You can be the best prepared, most diligent, brilliant candidate and have a bad day. We all do. So yeah, it happens to all of us. So nerves can be an issue. I think, though, going back to my previous point now, if you were to prepare properly and actually sit a proctored exam under exam conditions, hopefully it shouldn't be too much of an issue. But yeah, it is definitely a nervous experience. Depends where you take your exam. The bigger the financial centres, you tend to find the bigger the exam and the bigger the venue. And to me, I find that probably a bit more nervous. I mean, if you're in London, you'll probably do it at the Excel Centre in near City Airport, and you'll be in an exam hall with many thousands of people, and it is quite, you know, an unsettling experience just seeing that number of people. Logistics can be an issue, you know, just queuing up to get in, trying to find a taxi to take you there. You're having thousands of people trying to use the lockers, which aren't really designed for that number of people. So it can be a little bit tricky, right? But I think if you do a mock exam, it can definitely help you there. Obviously, the marking scheme, there's no negative marking, so you know, just guess if you don't know. Do you start at question 1 and finish at question 120 in a paper? Some people do. Personally, my own tip, this is one of my suggestions here, is I always recommend that people start with their strongest topic. So the topics, remember, are not randomly allocated, they're put into groupings. So all of the ethics questions will be in one section, all of the econ in another section, and so on and so on. And so I used to always start with my strongest ones. So for me, it was economics. So I'd flick the few pages, find economics, and blast through those. Then I'd go into quants, do those, then fixed income, portfolio management I used to always like, and the topic which I always hated the most was financial report analysis. Did that last. All right? And I found for my mocks I needed twice the time allowance than I was given. And so I allowed for that. So I did my strong areas first, did them quite quickly, and that helped me bank some time for my weak areas. Right? A few logistic issues in terms of your venue. Obviously, make sure you know how to get there, and make sure you know the test centre exam policy. Okay, we're a bit far out now, but maybe when you get to sort of May, go on the website of the CFA Institute website, have a look at the exam centre policy. Every year, many candidates have their results made invalid because they've broken some exam policy rule. And we're not talking necessarily about a really big rule, not saying necessarily you're cheating, but it could be as minor as having a mobile or cell phone in your pocket, turned off, but in your pocket in the exam centre. That is an absolute breach of their policy. So you just have a look at their policy, and hopefully you won't make those mistakes. Okay. Just a minor thing then, if you did want some help from us in terms of classroom teaching, I've mentioned some of the online stuff, but we have a whole variety. Now, obviously we have offices all over the world, and we have slight variations in different parts of the world in terms of the products we have. But generally speaking, in most areas we do in evening classes, we do weekend classes, we do daytime classes. You know, you'll find slight variations in the timings of those around the world, but it's generally the same. So, yeah, please reach out to us if you need any help. We do review classes, so really near the exam. We do like a 2-day, very focused question-answer sessions. And of course, I briefly mentioned the Cognition online platform. But say there are contact details we have here for if you want to reach out and talk more about it. If I have a quick flick through some of the other questions we've had here, that could be quite useful. Formulas. Okay, someone's asked about the new results format. Okay, yeah, this is very new. I'm not quite sure how it adds much, but if you haven't seen it, it's a bit weird. They give you the passing score as a line. Don't say what it is, so the vertical axis isn't really defined, but they give you a passing score. They then show the score that the 90th percentile got and the score that the 10th percentile got. And then they show you your line. So it gives you a rough idea as to how near you were to the passing score if you failed, or if you passed, then how near you were to the 90th percentile. So it gives you a little bit there, and they also do that per topic area. But it's quite hard. It's still quite hard to interpret those. So I don't know. I think the jury's still out on that new results format. But I guess any information is better than nothing. All right. Well, it looks like that's it for the questions that I can see here. I'm going to have a quick look to see if there's any other. I've scrolled down at the moment. I think that's about it. Well, hopefully this short chat has been useful. You know, please bear in mind those pitfalls. But I guess the main ones I said at the beginning is you've got to be structured. You have a structure, have a plan. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to stick to that, stick to your hours a week, and you've got to be focused. You know, you've got to really keep that end date in sight, build your performance, build your pace up to that end date. Okay, it's generally not about intelligence. You know, it's more effort than intellect. All right, so you know, it's 98% of it is down to work and hard work. Probably 2% is down to intellect. So don't be put off from the CFA. It's everyone can do it. I can honestly say I could teach most of the losses to my 14-year-old son. Right? Now, whether he has the motivation to learn them all is a different matter, but individually we could do that. So it's really not technically challenging, but I appreciate it's an awful lot for you to learn. So that's where it comes down to the plan, the 300 hours, etc. So anyway, good luck. You've got plenty of time to do something about it, and I wish you well in your CFA journey. Thank you for listening.